Soon may the weatherman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the stripping is done, we'll take our leave and go. Ahoy, mateos! It is 3:17, March 17th, 2026, 2:02 p.m. Pirate time. Today we're going to talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention. How federal protections like the ADA were built mostly for people with physical disabilities, and how that affects people with severe cognitive disabilities. My perspective. I've been a parent to a child with severe cognitive disabilities for over 40 years. In that time, I've seen the system, schools, therapists, agencies, and laws all try to do the right thing, but there's a huge blind spot. Policies on paper say inclusion, choice, and dignity. In reality, those words don't often apply to my son. ADA history. Let's go back. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 that I helped put through initially focused on people with physical disabilities, wheelchair users, visually impaired, hearing impaired. They need ramps, cut curbs, accessible transit, and civil rights. Cognitive disabilities? Barely on the radar. And when they were included, the focus became integration into mainstream life, like pushing children into a regular classroom. It wasn't about protections for cognitive barriers. It was about expecting them to adapt. And that's exactly what happened in 1990 when my son was starting kindergarten. They wanted him mainstreamed in the regular classrooms. And it worked really good for him. Here we go. School inclusion reality. I was lucky. My son had supportive teachers and classmates in school. But let's be honest, inclusion on paper is very different from true safety and meaningful participation. Even as adults, many people with severe cognitive disabilities live in settings that provide care and protection, but their daily life is often limited to supervised routines and small structured activities. Community inclusion limitations. The policy calls it community inclusion, but what does that really mean? For many adults with severe cognitive disabilities, it often means attending activities that are safe but limited, being transported by staff, and spending time in small group settings. It's far from the true integration or meaningful engagement in the broader community. ADA as a sham for cognitive disabilities. And this is where the law becomes a sham. The ADA guarantees rights, choice, and dignity, but it assumes that people can cognitively navigate risk, social interactions, and decision-making like any adult. For adults with severe cognitive disabilities, that's simply not the case. The system was designed by and for people with perfect cognitive function. Staff may follow forms and sign the check boxes, but real-world cognitive safety gets ignored. Imagine this. If my son were blind and I dropped him onto an obstacle course filled with cliffs, fires, and hazards, society would scramble to protect him. Barriers, guides, hands-on supervision, the works. But because he can see, the system assumes he can navigate life safely. Cognitive barriers aren't visible. They're invisible. And because they're invisible, policies assume inclusion equals safety, which is far from the truth. Historical perspective. The original deinstitutionalization movement, the HCBS waivers, and person-centered planning all promised freedom, dignity, and choice, but those rules never accounted for cognitive capacity. Back then, most parents didn't live with their children full-time. Many children with cognitive disabilities were still in institutions. Those parents and policymakers didn't have the day-to-day perspective I have now. They didn't know what adult life for a person with severe cognitive disabilities really looked like. Advocates like Wolf, Wolfenberger worked on deinstitutionalization, promoting community inclusion. His ideas were groundbreaking. But the reality is, he and many early reformers didn't have firsthand daily experience raising a child with severe cognitive disability. They couldn't predict the gaps, the hidden risks, or how choice could be misinterpreted by staff or programs. Federal oversight gaps. Fast forward to today. Policies may say, as long as there's no Medicaid funding, it's outside our authority. Federal rules like 42 CFR 441.585 A2 make it clear the state retains responsibility for health and welfare, regardless of funding, yet oversight is often limited to paperwork and billing. Real cognitive safety? Often ignored. Parent perspective. Parents like me know the difference. I see my son. I know what he can and cannot understand. I know when he's at risk of coercion, subtle manipulation, or exploitation. Policies assume autonomy and consent capacity. That just isn't there. It's not overprotective, it's reality. And this is why families must have a voice in policymaking. We live with these realities every day. Policy reality. Let's be honest, ADA and HCBS policies are grand and noble on paper, but in practice, they leave a huge gap for cognitively disabled adults. The protection exists theoretically, but without structured engagement, real oversight, and daily cognitive supports, they are meaningless. What's needed? Cognitive disabilities deserve specific protections, structured programming, and genuine community inclusion, not token activities, not paperwork checkboxes, real engagement, guidance, and protection. Without it, adults like my son are left in a shadow version of inclusion. Safe, yes, but not truly thriving. Call to action. Here's my call to action. Let's stop assuming inclusion works for everyone. Let's recognize that cognitive disabilities create invisible risks that must be acknowledged in law, policy, and programs. Let's ensure families are part of the conversation because we see what policymakers never could. The daily reality. Our loved ones deserve more than a checkbox. They deserve true safety, dignity, and a meaningful life in the community. Ahoy, Matios! That's the truth, the reality, and why advocacy matters. Let's wake up to the invisible population that's been left on paper too long. Ahoy! We just got back from the coast, and I'm still resting up. I'm going to have a new sea background, a new ocean background in the back for you. So I'll see you tomorrow with my next video. Ahoy, Matios! Have a good day.